Hey everybody, this is Bill Kelly for CreativeCow.net, and today we're going to be making some creative clouds on Creative Cow in Cinema 4D. Okay, so I've got this simple setup here with our home planet, and we've got some land masses, we've got some oceans, and we have some clouds. Now let's do a quick render. And from out here, it looks pretty good. But let's zoom in a little bit. Or actually, let's zoom in a lot and do another quick render. Now the clouds are kind of flat and even a little bit fuzzy maybe, not quite so good. So the method actually that I'm using here is pretty common when making Earth animations, but we're going to try to do better. So here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be making some clouds that are more natural looking and have some depth and volume. And we are not going to be using our old friend Pyrocluster. This is what we're going to be doing. Now this is great if you're going to be making a shot that needs to look like it was taken from the International Space Station, or you're doing a sci-fi shot with some spaceships descending to Earth, or maybe you're making a movie about an alien planet, so you show a wide shot of the planet, then you cut to an establishing shot a little closer to the planet. There's like green clouds and weird cities and slimy aliens and who knows what else. All right, but enough of that. Now let's go over exactly what's being done here. I've made a sphere and applied an Earth map texture to it that you can actually get by going to NASA's website, visibleearth.nasa.gov, and you can download one of these textures. If you click on the blue marble, it gives you a bunch of options depending on the resolution that you want. And if you really want to go for high resolution, there's another website here, h-schmidt.net/map, and you can download a really high resolution map here that was pieced together, and this will really give you some very high definition stuff. But it's actually, the texture is too big to use in Cinema 4D, so you have to take that map and downsize it in Photoshop to about 15,000 pixels by 7,500 pixels. And then you'll actually be able to use it in Cinema 4D. And then I created another sphere and applied the cloud texture that you can also get on the NASA website. So let's quickly go over these materials here and their settings. In the color channel, I loaded the map that I downloaded. I actually downloaded it to my After Effects folder because the first time I used it was in After Effects. But then the next thing that I did was I chose a bluish color here and put the mix strength at about 95%, just to kind of give the Earth a little bit of a bluish tone. You'll see if I bring it up to 100% and do a quick render, it's like that. And if we really bring this down, you'll see it'll become way too blue. But a good mixture I found was about 95%. That gives us about something that's probably more realistic. Then I came down to the bump channel. I'd made a grayscale image in Photoshop and applied that here on the bump channel. And then on displacement, I used the same map and set my strength to 30 and my height to 20. And on the clouds, I used the map that I downloaded from the NASA website in the color channel. And then in the alpha channel, I loaded the same map again and clicked everything here, but invert. And specular, I just left as it was, and there's no displacement. Now, if you're just going to be doing a wide shot of the planet, this is probably the best and easiest method to use that gives you good results. But if you need to go in tighter, this is where we're going to work on getting some better results. So let's zoom back in and just delete this texture. Okay, now let's get going on making our clouds. First, we're going to make a thin layer of clouds, and if I were a meteorologist, I could probably tell you what the thin layer of clouds is called, but I'm just going to call them thin clouds. So the first thing I'm going to do is double-click down here in the Materials tab and make a new material. And I'm going to go to the Color channel. Now, in the Texture channel, I'm going to come over and click on the first button and select Noise. Now click on the noise, and in the noise settings, I'm going to come down to wavy turbulence. I'm going to leave the octaves at 5. I'm actually going to move the global scale up to 300. Going to come out to the front here and just bring the mix strength way down. Next, we're going to go to the diffusion channel, click that on, and in the texture, we're going to select Fresnel and set that mix strength to 50%. Now, it's not looking very cloud-like so far, but we're going to work on that. Let's actually go back up to the color channel, go to texture, and select copy channel. Now we'll come down, click on bump, select bump, and in the texture channel, we're going to hit paste channel and set the strength up a little bit. Next we come to the alpha channel, select that, and the texture button we're going to select gradient and pre-multiplied. Now gradient, we're going to come down and hit 2D circular. And this is going to give us this sort of radial ramp here. And we're going to switch these around so we get something that looks about like this. And we're going to make our turbulence, let's just bump it up, go about, let's try 30%. Now we're kind of starting to get that cloud-like look. And I'm going to jump the octaves up to 10. And finally, we're going to come to displacement, click that on, go to our texture, select noise, and in the noise channel, we're actually going to go up and try blistered turbulence. Move our global scale up to 300, so it kind of zooms in on it a little bit. And we're going to come and bring our brightness down somewhere in this neighborhood. And now we're getting a little separation between our clouds and our non-clouds. So going back to the front of the displacement, I'm going to just bring this strength down a little bit. And bring up the height. Now let's try like 10. And turn on our subpolygon displacement. Okay, so this is our first new cloud material. And let's just rename this thin clouds. And apply it to our sphere. We can see just a very thin layer of clouds, which is exactly what we're going for right now. We could actually probably even go in and thicken them up a little bit. If we go back to our alpha channel and click on the gradient, you'll see by moving these around here, you can actually change quite a bit about how much cloud that you get. If I go here and render it now, you get not nearly as much. And conversely, you can get a whole lot of thick, foggy clouds. The best setting is probably somewhere here in the middle, where you can get a good mixture. And actually what you could probably do is use this, if you zoom out, with our original NASA clouds and you hit mix textures, then you kind of get the best of both worlds, especially if you have a planet that's really cloudy and foggy and gassy, hazy sort of planet, like a Jupiter or a Uranus or Neptune or something like that. We can pretty much offset these clouds any way we want to. Get kind of a cool ring effect around the planet. There's a lot you can do by just tweaking settings a little bit. And it's always fun to experiment and see what you get. Okay, now let's move on to the thicker clouds. The easiest thing to do is just take our material here and copy it and paste it again and call this one thick clouds. And by thick, I mean thicker in volume. So now let's double click on this material and Back up in the color channel, we're going to leave everything exactly the same as we had it before, but we're really going to bump this strength up. And let's uncheck diffusion and come down to bump and just knock this up just a little bit. And we'll come down to the alpha channel, click on our gradient, and just move this right around in here and just kind of thicken it up a little bit from what we had before. And now in displacement, we're going to click in here. We're going to change our global scale back to 100. And leave our brightness at -38. And come back out to the front window, and we're going to go down and pretty much do the opposite of what we had. We're going to leave, throw it down there somewhere so that we're getting a negative displacement. And let's bump up the height a little bit so it's a little more noticeable, say 25. And we're also going to change our blur scale here to 60 and keep the subpolygon displacement where it is. Okay, so now comes the fun part, actually putting our clouds on something. So first I'm going to come up to the primitives menu and I'm going to select disk. Later on I'll show you using landscape is actually really good also. But right now let's just use a disk, and I think what we need to do is get rid of the earth. That was my horrible Dr. Evil impression. But how many times do you get a chance to do it? All right, enough of that. I'm going to zoom in here. Let's put our cloud texture onto the disk and do a quick render. And you can see we have our texture, but it's not really looking all that spectacular. So actually what we need to do is come to the disk and change the amount of segments to maybe 12 and do another render. And now we're getting something that looks more like clouds. We still have some edges on the alpha here, so I think we're probably going to have to do some tweaks and adjustments. But we've got a good looking layer of clouds, so that's a good starting point. And let's bring the disk out, move it over, and bring back the earth. And now let's move our disk into position. And take a look at that. I'll zoom in. Go for a little rotation this way. And maybe get rid of this layer of clouds. And just turn these off so we can see what we're dealing with right away. Okay, we're still pretty far away. Let's move back in. Let's move this a little closer in. And try a quick render. Okay, yeah, I think our clouds are way too thick. So let's do a little tweaking. Let's move in here. And I think actually the first thing I want to do is put a little contrast in with the clouds. So I'm going to come up to the color channel and just make it kind of a darker color. And you'll see it'll add some contrast into our clouds. That'll definitely help. And I think we need to put on some transparency. Let's bring this down to, let's try 50% right now. And we wanted to get rid of the edges of the alpha. So let's bring this in a little bit. And maybe bring the displacement down a little. It's looking a little too bumpy. And let's just change this to regular intensity. I think that's going to help. Let's move it over into position a little more. And there, we've got some nice looking thicker clouds. If we want to, we could even scale down our disk and compact this a little bit. And now we even may want to add a little bit back in. We might have went a little too far on the transparency. Let's try 25% on the transparency. And bring the alpha back out a little more. Try that. And now we're getting some nice thick clouds just like we want. So if we want to move it back in here and just get it close to what our example was in the beginning. And turn our clouds back on here, although these now seem a little thick. If we do a render. Yeah, I mean, that's really what this is all about. There's a lot of tweaking that has to go on sometimes. So let's go back into our thin clouds and add some transparency. If we go 100% and bring this down to like 50. Let's zoom in here. And there, I think that's the effect that we were going for. There's still a little bit right in here, so we go back in and tweak. Like I said, there's a lot of tweaking that goes on with this. But at the same time, it gives you a lot of possibilities for things that you can do. Oh, and I guess the last thing that I want to show you before we take off is putting the clouds on the landscape, because this can be really cool also. Let's get rid of everything there. So if you've never used the landscape before, it's basically just kind of warped geometry that gives you a start if you're, say, doing mountains or something like that, but it can actually be pretty cool if you use it with the cloud settings also. And so what I'm going to do just from here, first of all, is grab my thin clouds and just put it on the landscape as it is and do a quick render. And it gives us kind of some weird looking clouds, but if we make some adjustments to the landscape, bringing down the furrows, which is basically kind of like the peaks, and even the fine furrows, bring them down a little bit, and do another quick render. And now we've got some clouds with some volume and some depth. If we try to go down here parallel to the clouds and do a quick render. You can see they've got actual physical depth. And if you want to take this now and actually wrap it around the planet, that's pretty easy to do. Come up to the Deformers menu and choose Spherify. And we're going to put the Spherify inside the landscape. Let's just bring it away for a second and make the Earth reappear. And bring our object back. Now let's take the landscape and change its orientation to Z. And increase the spherify radius. So it's actually going to cover the Earth. And you can see here we've got a semicircle going around. So if we move this over kind of into position and then do a little rotation. So let's turn off our other cloud texture. And this is another time when we'll probably have to come in and make some adjustments. It's probably very thick. But if you wanted to go for the full Earth wrap, I guess it's a half Earth wrap. And you could get some cool patterns just by doing this Earth wrap sort of thing if you wanted to. Get rid of that. Turn our clouds back on. And that's pretty much going to wrap things up. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Bill Kelly for CreativeCow.net. See you next time.